Blue Jays GM Ross Atkins has said that he doesn't want to have to trade Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Bichette or anyone that's going to be under contract in 2025. But some insiders are talking around Major League Baseball, and they're saying that the Blue Jays, there's no way that they're going to make the playoffs if they run it back with the same roster, and therefore they're proposing that the Blue Jays try to offload as many contracts as they can, and that includes Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But the question is, will the Blue Jays be willing to listen in on those offers? And what could they possibly get back for the star first baseman that started for the American League in the All-Star game yet again? So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. Welcome in everybody to Jays Digest. I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And the discussion around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been pretty quiet lately. It's been kind of a moot on that front where the Jays don't want to have to trade the star first baseman, where they don't even want to entertain the possibility of getting rid of him. But we got to face the reality that he is going to be a free agent after next season, and he is due for a hefty pay raise. Are the Blue Jays going to be able to come to an agreement with Vladdy Jr. because they haven't been close in what we've been hearing. So Nick, they might lose him for nothing next year. And if they decide to run it back with the same roster, there is no way that they're going to have success considering how well other AL East teams have been doing this season. So what's going to be the approach here at the deadline? We don't know yet. We assume that all the rentals or all the expiring deals are going to be on their way out of Toronto. But beyond that, I mean, the Blue Jays seem to be in limbo right now, and they risk themselves of just absolutely annihilating their future if they don't get this deadline right.
Yeah, we're 6 days away from what's going to be a pretty wild deadline for the Blue Jays. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit another home run yesterday. His OPS plus up to 140. And Peter, there's a variety of reports saying that the Jays aren't going to trade Vladdy. Ross Atkins said that. But then there's also some new chatter lately surrounding, and this is from John Morosi. There's also some more stuff we'll get into. And basically, if you watch this clip, I recommend you go do it. Peter, it's basically them saying what you said in the intro. The Jays and Jeff Passan also came out on the Blair and Barker show and said the exact same thing. Basically saying the landscape for any team competing in the AL East is grim. Now you're telling me you're going to bring back the team that has terminally underachieved. And that's basically what John Morosi is saying as well, and all these guys. It's like, why would the Jays now what they're saying is why would they keep Vladdy knowing if they're going to try to run it back next year? They're in the hardest division in baseball. They're in one of the worst offensive stretches of I've seen for a Toronto Blue Jays team. Why would they try to run it back next year instead of either extending or trading Vladdy? And these reports are saying, and these rumors, that they should go ahead and trade him while his value is at its peak since 2021, really, when obviously he was never going to get traded back then. So, what are your thoughts on this? It's an alternative approach to what is. I don't think they're going to trade him personally. I think they're going to trade the rentals, but it's definitely something to think about if you're the Blue Jays.
I don't think they're going to trade him, and I don't want them to trade him. I want them to start working on an extension. What the Blue Jays have as an advantage here is that he has publicly stated that he wants to stay, and you have a year head start on any other team that wants to go out and acquire him. Why are you waiting? Why are you dragging this on? The Blue Jays need to work the phones like they've never worked the phones before in the offseason, this offseason, if they decide to not trade him at the deadline. But then we look at the other side of the discussion, Nick. What could they possibly get back for him? And that's a big question mark as well, because I don't want to have to trade Vladdy for pennies on the dollar when he's arguably the most advanced hitter on the market this year and probably the most potent bat in the market as well. So if the Blue Jays decide to trade him, there's no doubt that he automatically vaults himself into the most valuable player in the market. Whether you want to include Brent Rooker in that discussion, fine. But Rooker, he can't play any defensive position, and he's awful defensively. So I don't know how well he fits as a full-time DH. Whereas Vladdy has shown the ability to move over to third base in a pinch. He's adequate at first base. He's not a gold glover by any stretch, even though he does have the award to his name. He's not fantastic defensively, but he's someone that you can plug in to a lineup and not worry about how he's going to perform defensively. That's not the same sentiment that others have with Brent Rooker. So Vladdy is, in my opinion, the most accomplished bat on the market if the Jays decide to put him there, and I think he has the most value. But what does a trade package look like? Is it a couple of middling prospects because you don't have him for that long, or is it a top prospect package like similar to what the Yankees had to give up for Juan Soto? I don't know. I don't think he's on the same caliber as Juan Soto, but I think you can get something in that realm with 3 or 4 top prospects because 1.5 years of Vladdy in a really good lineup could definitely help out a contending team.
Yeah, you see this from Brandon. Basically, said, I think the Blue Jays should be trying to make their 2026 and 2027 roster as good as possible. To me, that means entertaining a Vlad trade, which is interesting because I think for the Jays to be the best version of themselves, they extend in 2026 and 2027. That is, they extend Vladdy and have him going forward. But Peter, you mentioned about what they could get in a trade, and this isn't a report by any means. It's just a proposed blockbuster trade. And this is, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, the Mariners have been linked to a lot. They've been linked to Bichette. He's been linked to Vladdy. Have been linked to the Mariners. And this is Vladdy and Jimmy Garcia for a handful of prospects. Now, if this is the type of package that the Blue Jays could get for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. this trade deadline, Peter, I want to get your thoughts on it because, and if you're unfamiliar with the prospects, here's a little tidbit here. You can see the Mariners will send their number 2 prospect in Harry Ford, their number 9 prospect in Arroyo, their number 11 prospect in Morales, and their number 26 in Suisabel, if that's how you pronounce it. Apologies if it's wrong. Prospects to the Jays. All rankings are according to MLB Pipeline, so you're getting the number 2 prospect, you're getting multiple top prospects from the Mariners system, not necessarily in all of baseball, even though Harry Ford is one of the better prospects in baseball. He's a very solid prospect. Is this a deal you entertain if you're the Blue Jays, if this is the type of package you're giving up? And don't forget, you're also giving up your best reliever here in Jimmy Garcia.
Maybe. I'm not going to be so quick to shut this down. I like Harry Ford a lot, and the Blue Jays have a big need at catcher as well. So if you accept this trade, if you're Ross Atkins, my first immediate move after that is turning around and trading Danny Jansen and seeing what you can get for another expiring contract. If you agree to this trade, then you're in full gutted mode. You're trying to trade everybody that has a pulse in your team, in your organization. I think that's going to be the next move if the Jays decide to do this, and that's signaling a a definite rebuild. This is no longer a retool if you accept that trade. Now, I still think the best course of action is to try and extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think he's a really good player, and you're going to be hard pressed to get someone that is better than him in return in a trade. So I think, again, you should try and work out an extension. You got to work the phones this offseason because then once he hits free agency, it's free game, and the Yankees can swoop in. Any organization can swoop in and offer him the most amount of money, and something that the Blue Jays may not be willing to do. So I think you got to try to get it done this offseason, but I'm okay with that trade. I think they could do a little bit better in terms of getting uh, better prospects, but Harry Ford is as good as they come around Major League Baseball, and I would definitely welcome him with open arms. But will he be better than Vladdy? That's a question that we have to ask ourselves as well, because we know prospects are no sure thing, and Vladdy is not too much older than Harry Ford. He's 4 years older than him, and he's already had a runner-up season as an MVP. He's already had so much success at the big league level that it's hard to even fathom wanting to trade him.
Yeah, if this was for Bo Bichette, this trade, I'd definitely probably do it in a heartbeat,
Yeah.
personally, just because of the different thing. But for Vladdy, he wants to be here. He's one of the best hitters in baseball, so it'll be very interesting. It's gonna be very interesting to see what happens with Vladdy at this trade deadline. I don't think either of us. I would rather them extend Vladdy. I don't want to see him moved, but if it ultimately makes the most sense for the Jays going forward and they want to go into a full rebuild, then this is probably the way to go. Any final thoughts on this? It's going to be the big talking point. Is not really Vladdy necessarily, but what they do with all of their players, as the deadline now is less than a week away, and it's going to be a lot of stuff to cover for this team because changes need to be made. I'm hoping they make some big splashes here to get the retool or rebuild, depending on what pathway they going.
Well, I will say this, he's definitely upping his trade value if the
Yeah.
Jays decide to go in that direction. He's been hitting home runs left, right, and center, and he looks like 2021 Vladdy again. He's patient at the plate, he's waiting for his pitches, and he's doing damage when his pitch finally comes, which is not something that we've seen with regularity over the past 2 years. If he can keep up the pace that he's had over the past month or 2 months here, then he might finish the season with 30 home runs or
Yep.
35 home runs. And that's a very good number considering how he started off the year. So I'm happy with the way that he's played. I think he should be a mainstay in this lineup for the next decade to come. But if the Blue Jays decide to go in that direction, they got to milk every last prospect they can out of the team that is trading for him, because anything less than a couple of top 10 prospects in an organization, or three top 10 prospects in an organization, I don't know if I pick up the phone if I'm Ross Atkins. But yeah, I don't know, Nick. What do you think? Do you think the Jays should entertain this, or are you just wanting to keep Vladdy at all costs?
I don't like it. I think they keep him, and I want them to keep him. It
No,
just
you don't like that trade in particular, or
I
just the
think
idea
I
of
think
trading
the
him?
I think the idea is just you're gonna lose that trade 9 times out of 10. And you said it just then. Vladdy's swing looks like his 2021 swing, and if you look at the pathway, you look at
Does.
everything about it, he looks like a 2021 self. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I think ultimately what's going to happen at this trade deadline is going to really indicate what happens to the Blue Jays going forward, because I'm hoping that they don't fall into this trying to compete in 2025 thing, because the division's only getting harder. But let us know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are on this. Do you want to see them trade Vladdy, or do you want to see what we want to see, which is an extension, and let them keep the player that is turning back the clock to 2021 when he was one of the best hitters in baseball? So let us know. That'll wrap it up. See you soon.